Now, across Texas, the issue is.
I'm Stephen Dial in Dallas.
I'm Rudy Koski in Austin.
And I'm Greg Krugen in Houston. And this is Texas, the issue is.
Well, Republicans continue to praise the efforts by the Texas legislature to redraw congressional maps, possibly giving Republicans and President Trump 5 new seats in Congress. I sat down with Texas's senior Senator John Cornyn about the topic and also the elephant in the room, his primary challenger, Ken Paxton. Could this plan backfire on Republicans?
You know, everything I've seen indicates that while if California is successful in this negating the 5 seats in Texas, that other states like Ohio, maybe Missouri and others will see a gain in Republican seats nationwide. And I know President Trump wants to make sure that the midterm elections, we keep the House. Otherwise, it means his agenda is in trouble.
Does this not show that Republicans are nervous about the midterms?
Well, I think it shows we don't take anything for granted. You know, President Trump wants to be able to pursue his agenda, and that requires a Republican majority in the House. And you know that Speaker Johnson has been pulling rabbits out of the hat right and left, even with razor-thin majorities. So I think he'd like a little bit of a cushion during the last 2 years of President Trump's second term of office so he can continue to pursue the agenda he got elected on.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton also supports the redistricting plan in Texas. He is challenging Senator Cornyn for Senate. We offered the Paxton campaign the same opportunity to do an interview with us. This is what he said in an August Fox interview.
It is exactly what you said. It's theatrics. Think about this. They've gerrymandered most of these Democratic states. Many of them have no Republican representation. Illinois, 3 Republicans out of 17 when the state voted 44% for Donald Trump or 45% for Donald Trump. And I think we have 9 states that have gerrymandered so much they literally eliminated all Republicans. So the hypocrisy of this, I mean, I don't know how they sit in front of a camera or even constituents and claim that they were going back to Jim Crow when the Democrats have done it all across the country, and we're just a little late to the game.
When it comes to the primary election between Cornyn and Paxton,
my opponent, the current Attorney General, believes that character doesn't matter, and he thinks that all the baggage that he brings to the polls with him is not going to make any difference to the voters who show up and vote in the Republican primary.
Your campaign recently took a jab at him about the 10 Commandments being in classrooms. Care to comment on that?
Well, I mean, he said he was going to insist that the 10 Commandments be posted in all classrooms, but I suggested he might want to brush up on the 10 Commandments because he seems to have struggled with at least one or more of those commandments, and it did get a bit of attention.
Paxton has taken jabs at Cornyn on social media. In a post recently, Paxton said, quote, "Just think how much Trump will accomplish when he doesn't have John Cornyn fighting him in the Senate." You're the senior senator from Texas.
Yep.
You're not leading in multiple polls. Why do you think that is?
Well, I always say that, you know, in the Senate, you run every 6 years. That's good news. The bad news is you run every 6 years, and a lot happens in the meantime. And I am not one of those who goes to Washington to engage in performance art. You know, we have too many people want to go to Washington and be famous. They want to be on TV, they want to raise money, and they want to get the most clicks on social media. I prefer to solve problems.
Again, we would like to state that we offered the Paxton campaign an opportunity to talk with us, and that offer still stands. My word for this interview is fighting shape. I'll explain that later. Rudy Koski, what is your word?
You're going to punch that one out, I guess, a little bit later. Well, with football college season now underway, I'm going to go with bench warmer.
Okay, Greg Krugen, what about you?
Stephen, my word is attrition, as in war of attrition.
All right, the Fox Texas Trio will debate more about this when we come back. The Fox Texas trio is back. Greg Grugan, can this redistricting plan in Texas backfire on Republicans nationwide?
Stephen, there's certainly that chance. We've talked multiple times on this show about the quiet reluctance of many Texas Republican incumbents to dilute their safe congressional districts in order to create opportunity for the gains President Trump has demanded. We've also talked about the single largest factor impacting the midterms, which will be the perception of economic prosperity by millions of Texans, particularly those of swing Hispanic voters who broke tradition and voted red in 2024. So, Stephen and Rudy, the new map is not unlike a baccarat bet at a Trump casino. If the president's economic plans start bearing fruit and folks are feeling hopeful about the future, jackpot. But if inflation remains untamed, tariffs tamp down profits, and job numbers don't jump, this GOP wager could prove painful. Stephen?
Rudy, Senator Cornyn did not mince words. He said that Republicans need some cushion in the House. Your take?
Yeah, Cornyn didn't mince words, and Greg didn't mince words either. Yahtzee, I'll throw that one in there. Greg's spot on. Yes, they do. But what's being done is, like Greg pointed out, a very calculated risk. First of all the analysts who I spoke to, they don't believe redistricting will be an issue that voters will actually take into the November 2026 ballot box. I don't think they really care, despite all the teeth gnashing and foot stomping from all the Democrats. Now, that's not saying that this summer redraw is not a political gamble. Yahtzee. The new map, if it survives for the midterms, that's going to be a big question too with all the legal challenges, is not a hard guarantee that it would deliver additional GOP seats in Congress. There are some scenarios where a few, as Greg mentioned, a few incumbent Republicans could be in a very hard fight in their formerly solid red districts. What may help prevent a Democrat upset? Cash. The GOP certainly has a big campaign war chest. And if President Trump's polling numbers continue to tank somewhat, especially in reliable surveys, the GOP party bosses may need to crack open that war chest before next spring, do some pre-primary damage control and image repair marketing. How's that, Stephen?
Yeah, and that speaks to the segue that I was going to have. Greg, Senator Cornyn is not leading in any poll that I could find. And in fact, the Senate campaign committee sent a poll saying that they found a poll that's finally within single digits of him and Attorney General Ken Paxton. And he told me in our interview, he said if Paxton is the nominee, the Republican Party is going to be spending a lot of money to try to beat the Democrat. Your take, should Cornyn be worried, or is it too early?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even the most clear-eyed campaigners always run worried, even if they're actually winning. I think the good news for Cornyn is the fact that he's managed to chew back much of Paxton's double-digit lead through a combination of statewide media spending and magnification of the challenger's latest headline-grabbing, disreputable behavior, as in allegations of serial adultery by his wife and his potentially illegal cheating on mortgage loans and homestead exemptions. Taken together, it's yet another bad look for our state's top cop. Now, all that said, the hard-right Republican base has been looking the other way on Paxton's behavior for more than a decade and is unlikely to abandon him now. So this comes down to primary turnout among so-called regular Republicans and conservative-leaning independents who see Cornyn as a guy they can count on with a demonstrable pro-Trump record that passes muster, and more importantly, a well-known incumbent free of slime who can easily keep the seat safely out of Democratic hands. Stephen?
Rudy, do you agree?
Well, Greg's just scoring today, isn't he? Now, Stephen, like an Arch Manning pass, everything is up in the air,
here
right?
we go.
Which is why my word was bench warmer. Now, hear me out, guys, hear me out. We know that the Second Amendment base, really they don't like Senator Cornyn because of how he responded to the Uvalde mass shooting. We know the evangelical base is struggling to find an excuse to support Paxton after his wife cited biblical grounds for the reason she's divorcing him. With all those political fumbles, an possible Hail Mary deal could be in the works. Now, here's that possible deal. GOP primary audible called by Donald Trump. He makes Senator Cornyn an ambassador. He benches Paxton, especially if more polling shows that Paxton, as the Republican Senate nominee, could make a critical turnover, give Democrats their long-awaited upset win for a statewide seat. So what's the play? What's the audible? Trump goes to the bench. He endorses Wesley Hunt. Now, the key for Hunt, don't laugh, guys, the key for Hunt from going from QB3 to QB1 is his current image-making plan, his big media blitz that's underway. It has to pay off fast with some good polling numbers. Whoa, Nelly, don't say it can't happen. Remember, this time last year, the Democrats tried their own trick play in the presidential race, punted all their primary votes, punted Joe Biden right off the ticket. So a late quarter roster change, it's possible. Hut, 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 Omaha. Okay, enough football talk. School's in. So, of course, classroom curriculum and testing, big issues at the state capitol. After this break, the Texas Trio will kick off that discussion. Welcome back to The Issue Is. The dreaded STAR test for students in Texas public schools, about to be history, but the issue over what is taught before the test appears to be the next big assignment. The state school board in a few days will try to revamp standards for social studies, what's known as TEKS, Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. I spoke to Mandy Drogan with the Texas Public Policy Foundation about how those two issues are part of a larger battle once known as the Texas Textbook Wars.
I am so tired of seeing people say that we can't do this and this isn't fair. What's not fair is that 50% of the kids in our public school classrooms right now can't read on grade level, 60% can't do math, and 70% cannot pass our history and social studies TEKS. That is what is not fair.
In your mind, is there any way to separate assessing the school and assessing the child? Can the two be separated?
No. No, it can't be. We've gone through years of lawsuits on the A through F accountability system. Every single session, they come back and they try and put more, they call them indicators in there. Look, a couple years ago, they were trying to test body mass index as an indicator of how a school would be ranked, basically implying that students that have a larger body mass index would somehow not be able to comprehend information. I guess. I don't know. I don't understand why the system, these associations, TASB, TASA, Bear County Education Coalition, all of these entities are constantly wanting to hide from parents. Are we teaching your child to read and comprehend? Are we teaching your child mathematics skills? Are we teaching them history and social studies? This is not that complicated. Look, we're in a battle right now. We're watching the SBOE. They are about to restructure the social studies TEKS. I'm hoping that they'll do the chronological comprehensive model so that our kids, their brain development, it aligns with that. I hope that with the restructuring of the TEKS by the State Board of Education, which the votes they'll be meeting on the week of September 9th, taking the comprehensive look, the reality is that all of this intersects. What our kids are reading during their English language arts time should also be part of what they are learning in history. All of this can go together. So is it separate? No. Education, it all interweaves with each other. And we can do that, particularly in our K through 8 grades.
Isn't there some criticism about what's being considered?
So they're in the restructure process. And that is where, when the presentations were made, that is what some people have talked about and pointed out, rightfully so. We have to make sure that it is contextual. One of the reasons why kids, and let's be clear, on the STAR exam, we had 70% of our 8th graders fail social studies and history TEKS. And that's a high point. Let me say, the NAEP scores, the nation's report cards, found that just 22% of our kids pass social studies and history TEKS in the or history exam in the 8th grade. That is a real crisis. And what is the problem? Well, kids right now, we have our education, our social studies and history TEKS. They're basically in blocks. You're going to learn about world history here. You're going to learn about U.S. history here. You're going to learn about Texas history here. The reality is history didn't occur in blocks. It is all interconnected. While the Revolutionary War was going on here, you had other things going on there. How does the Magna Carta that occurred in 12 1215 affect the development of Western civilization? How did our founders look to that document? The reality is we have to show the context and the ideals that led to America's greatness. We were unique. A constitution had never been done. Kings ruled the world for thousands of years. George Washington declined being a king and helped set up the greatest government to ensure checks and balances. So you're exactly correct. That has to be taught throughout our kids' K through 12 education. And that should be both in their social studies and history lessons, but they should also understand that the test, the accountability already has cross-curricular. These kids are already being tested on that. And again, that's why they're failing, is because we're not focused on a high quality education.
Interesting, compelling argument there. Now, if history has taught us anything, guys, September's state school board meeting could be one for the history books, right? I'm hearing the recent vote in the special session to replace the STAR test may give conservatives on the state board incentive to flex some political muscle. Stephen, I think testing and textbooks could be a possible ballot box distraction for the midterm primaries. What do you think?
Yeah, it's definitely something that people can campaign on. There's been a lot of frustration on both sides about the STAR test, but the bigger frustration is, okay, so what next? What do you do? What is the way to provide a litmus test for schools and student performance? I'll be honest, I was a terrible test taker, but I had to still take the test, right? And so I think it's striking a balance, but it will definitely be a talking point, especially in local politics more than national or regional politics, if you will.
You know, back in the regular session, state lawmakers passed SB 24. In a way, that bill foreshadowed this current testing textbook face-off. The legislature requires school studies instruction on communist regimes, the victims, and a comparative analysis of communism to democracies. There's also a direction to require courses on understanding personal finance and civics. Big thing they ought to put in typing. Greg, you and I both covered those past Texas textbook wars. What's your take?
Rudy, just like the legislative sessions, they will play out exactly how the Texas Republican power structure wants them to play, which means there will be exclusion of any curriculum with even an inkling of wokeness, which means there will be a heavy emphasis on the merit of American exceptionalism as defined by conservative scholars, which means there will likely be a back to basics focus on civics, the Constitution, and the role of faith in government with an emphasis on Christianity. Now, as a parent and a Texan, I have to say Drogan's hard number indicating only 1 in 5 students of our state have an acceptable grasp of history and government. That's frankly deplorable and dangerous, so something has to change. Rudy?
Yeah, definitely. Stephen, it's been said history is not always what it appears to be. Are board members, in your opinion, walking into a political bear trap?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're going to get flack regardless of which way they go. It's just a matter of what voters show up to give them the most flack.
Greg, pivotal moment coming up?
Yeah, I'll go back to that estimate of 4 out of 5 students essentially failing to attain a baseline of fundamental knowledge regarding our nation's history and how our democracy operates. I don't know about you guys, but that sounds pretty damn pivotal to me. Rudy?
All right, it's going to be interesting to see how this one all plays out. All right, Greg, take us away.
All right, when we come back, my favorite part of the show, when we get to unload our issues, so stay with us.
It's Judge Judy's greatest hits with classics like
That's ridiculous. That's a lot of baloney.
Plus.
What are you, nuts?
Judge Judy, delivering the hits daily.
Weekdays at 4 on More 27.
Welcome back. Time to unload our personal grievances and issues. I go first. The Texas legislature this week approved the over-the-counter sale of the powerful anti-parasite drug ivermectin, which rose to prominence as an off-label therapy during the pandemic. Democrats strenuously objected, suggesting Texans will forego vital medical treatment and rely instead on an unreliable fix-all drug instead, resulting in unnecessary illness and death. My take? That sounds like nanny state think. Now, if Texans want to self-medicate, I say get after it, with the understanding that if things don't work out, Don't whine to government after screaming, "Give me ivermectin" or "Give me death." Liberty, after all, cuts both ways, so good luck. Stephen?
All right, I'm a sports guy at heart, so my thing has to be sports. The SEC announced that next season they are moving to 9 SEC games, still no divisions, which means kind of gone are the days of the cupcake, right? At least for all the SEC teams. I know the season is starting. Maybe your team already lost. This was taped before the first game, but I'm just super excited for college sports. Rudy Koski.
I'm going to build off of that, Stephen. As we wrap up a week of political hypertension and over-the-top comments and all that, here we go. We're just wrapping up week 1 of the college football season, and the sports pundits are already going, "The season's over for so-and-so. What's the matter you? Because they lost against Hyperbolic State University." It's just calm down. It's just week 1. And, I remember last year, week 1 had a lot of blow-ups, and still a lot of teams came back and made a really big push. My big thing, though, is, how is Ohio State going to bounce back? How is Texas going to bounce back?
Wow.
How are the Aggies going to bounce back? With the Rebels, it is what it is, and we just try to win the party, right, guys? So here we are.
Look,
football season's here.
Rudy, I was just going to slide this in.
Astros.
I don't like how they're just exalting Texas. I'll say that on the record. I'm gonna just say it, and we can move on.
Surprise!
Yeah. Yeah, I think way too much cooking in the kitchen with those sports pundits. We'll see. Just let the dust settle. And if your team loses, don't lose it. Don't worry, it's a long season, and things can happen, especially with the playoffs, which have been expanded, which is a good thing. That's a good thing, right, guys?
Yes.
And we will end it with that. You can see this and our other issue interviews on our YouTube pages.
And keep the conversation going by interacting with us on social media.
All right, next week, the second special session winding to a close and plenty of Lone Star politics brewing across the state. So there will be plenty to talk about. In the meantime, don't forget to let us know what you think the issue is.